Okay, so we're talking about making fun, you know, or let's say looking down upon others, being condescending, right, towards people of other, or for whatever reason. I just gave one example, right? People of other ethnicities, not welcoming them in our mosques, not welcoming them in our Husayniyat or in our centers. Why? Because we think we're better than them. That's really the bottom line, you know. Oh, they're dirty. Oh, they smell. Oh, they don't, you know, I don't know, look like me, or they don't, you know, whatever the case may be. At the end of the road, yeah, Sister Hadil, you know, mentions a very important point. She says this is a problem with the older generation. Does everybody agree with this? Is the newer generation, they're completely purified from this sickness? Huh?
No, not completely.
Yeah, let's get some input.
Not completely, but
No?
They're a little bit more like
purified.
liberal.
Yeah, I agree. Not completely, but a little bit more liberal.
Okay, so
or understanding or accepting.
Okay, so more accepting and understanding, but there's still that old, that little spot in the heart, huh?
Of course.
Because they grew up hearing this, is that it?
They just have that sense of pride, like from their ethnicity or their nationality.
Yeah, well, there's nothing wrong with having pride in your nationality, right? I mean, Prophet Muhammad loved Mecca. He was proud of being a Meccan. Even when he was in Medina, he wanted to go back to Mecca. This is very well known, okay, about Prophet Muhammad. But did he snub anyone because he was from Mecca and they were from, like Salman al-Farisi was from Persia, right? Bilal was from Habasha. He was African, right? Our Imams, Al-Imam al-Jawad, his mother was African. He had nappy hair and he was dark in skin, right? Our Imams, most of them, if not all of them, their mothers were slaves. We have Al-Imam al-Kadhim, his mother was from Morocco. Prophet Muhammad married an Egyptian woman, right? Al-Imam al-Mahdi, his mother is the granddaughter of Caesar. She was Roman. Oh, that's okay. It's cool because she's Phoenician, right? She's got the blue eyes and the white skin, but we forget about the others, right? We forget about Tuktum, right? We forget about the others, the other mothers. What about Imam Hussein, salamullahi alayhi? He married Shahr Banu, the mother of Imam al-Baqir, Imam Sajjad, salamullahi alayhi, right? She was Persian. She was taken as a prisoner of war after the Muslims defeated Kisra. They defeated Persia.
You know what's sad, Sheikhna? That a lot of people use these examples. So I'll hear it from the older generation, like Bilal was the kind of blah, blah, blah. But then when you see their actions, they go against all of that teaching. So why do we have that disconnect? It's like we know the information, but it hasn't truly entered our hearts in a sense.
Ahsanti, that's very true. And that's what I was talking about today in the lecture. You know, that why is it that a doctor can tell you smoking is bad for you and yet still smoke? It's the same thing. Right? It really boils down to one word, right? And we just talked about it a few minutes ago. Because Islam is to say, yes, I'm a Muslim, right? Iman is to believe in something. So they have to believe in it, right? So they might be doing everything else, but then with this issue, they don't have Iman in it. They don't have belief in it. They're mu'mineen in everything else, right? Their heart is very deeply tied with what they believe intellectually, okay? But with that specific point, you know, say, no, I don't have a problem with the Nigerians. I don't have a problem with the Eritreans. I don't have a problem with the Moroccans, right? Just don't let them marry my daughter, right? Don't let them, you know, marry my son. I don't want my son to marry an Eritrean.
You think it's also a cultural issue as well, too?
Well, that's what we're saying. It's huge.
That's what I feel like it's more cultural than religious in that sense.
I mean, yeah, it's cultural. And remember, Islam came to get rid of cultural biases and prejudices, right? But here we are finding ourselves, as much as we are mu'mineen, right? Falling into the same trap. It doesn't mean we can't come out of it. Right? We can, because at the end of the road, it's all a matter of choice. Correct? It's all a matter of choice. The real test, I think, is when that happens, you know, and you'd be surprised. I mean, there are people who I know are like hardcore mu'mineen. Okay, so that's one thing. The other thing that I want to pose another one just so that it gets a little controversial here, okay? So brother Haj Alex, he knows how I like controversy. Or lack thereof, right? Not, of course, right?
Yeah,
so
you don't really like controversy.
I don't like controversy.
I think you just like to bring it up and then walk away, see what happens.
No, I never walk away. I never walk away.
That was a
right?
joke. Yeah, that was a joke.
I do not walk away.
You
right?
never do. You never
Because
do.
our role is to spread the knowledge, right? And to try
Definitely.
to help ourselves heal and mend any of these things, right? So how about the prejudices we have when it comes to our maraja? This person follows this marja, this person follows that marja. Oh no, I would never have my daughter marry someone that follows this marja. You know how many times I hear this? Wallahi, I'm sick of it. I'm so sick of it, you know. First of all, choosing a marja is a personal choice, okay? It's a personal choice. Okay, my son decides to follow another marja other than me, okay? But how come I have a problem with him? Why do I have a problem with him if he does this? Who says that everything has to be, when he is not the same as me, he's not the same person, right? He might have gained more knowledge than me. He might know something that I don't, right? But I don't reject him as a human being just because he follows another marja at the end of the road. I might disagree with him, but I love him because he's my son, right? But isn't that supposed to be the relationship between the mu'mineen, that we're all brothers, right? That we all have rights upon each other? Shouldn't it be that if this person follows marja A and this person follows marja B, that I respect their opinion and we're all under one umbrella? It saddens me, wallah, when I go to the Sunni mosques, okay, and I see people from all ethnicities, and all denominations. I mean, all denominations. I mean, within the Sunni sect, okay, the Hanbalis and the Shafi'is and the, you know, who else do we have? The Malikis, and they're all under one roof, right? They're all under one roof. Okay, we have a lot of centers. I know where we are. Okay. We're not saying, you know, let's just bring us all under one roof, although that would be ideal for unity. But let's say some of us can't get as far as Dearborn Heights, and some of us are on Dix Road and we can't get to, let's say, Dearborn, you know, or some of us are on I don't know, Schaefer, while others of us are on Wyoming. It's just too far, you know. Okay. I'll tell you what I told my brothers and sisters in Seattle. And I loved it when I saw this movement actually in Dearborn, where, you know, I remember after a few years, or after a year or so of working with the brothers and sisters in Seattle, we made this pact, and with my brother and my brother Sheikh Basil, may Allah bless him, Sheikh Basil Haddad, one of my colleagues here who studied in Najaf and went back to Seattle, that our goal is to get the youth to be able to go to all the centers. So one weekend I go for Dua Kumail in this center. The other weekend I go to Dua Kumail in another center. No, our Dua Kumail program is going to be empty, Sheikh. Don't say this. Okay. One day pray in this mosque. The other day pray in the other mosque. You know, show as a generation, you know, that we're beyond, you know, this I don't want to use the word, you know, this pettiness, right? It's important for us to do that. Because in Imam al-Hujjah at the end of the road, are we all going to be under his umbrella, under one umbrella? Right? Or is he going to say, oh, no, not this mosque. I'm not going to this. I'm not going to, you people aren't in. Is that what he's going to say? Or is that what we're saying? Are we saying, you know what, only my center is going to be under the flag of the Hujjah, because we follow this marja, right? And that's it. And we're from this ethnicity. We're all from Nigeria. You know, we follow this marja, okay, and we're all, it's just us, nobody else. Is that what it is? Hamid, is that what it is? Is it? Is that what Imam al-Hujjah is going to say?
Absolutely not.
Or is he going to come to us and say,
exactly.
This is wallah what really pains me.
Within our own people from our own countries, they don't like you to marry from different villages. So
Hey, one is from Tibnin, one is from
That's
Jbel.
what I'm
Forget
saying.
about it. Not gonna happen, right?
You
It's not
Right
just a
on the money.
Lebanese thing, huh? It's not just a Lebanese thing. It's an Iraqi thing too.
Yeah.
Okay?
Sheikhna, don't you think that's dying down though?
That's what?
That's dying down.
Wallahi, wallahi, I would like to say that I do believe there's a semblance of hope. There's like a glimmer.
Mm-hmm.
Right? It's getting better.
Sure,
You know,
right?
depending on which mosque you're in, maybe, right? Depending, I'd say.
Right.
It all depends, really. You know, because it depends on where you are, and it depends on who you are, and it depends on, you know, how malleable your parents are. You know.
Yeah, yeah. Isn't this?
And your parents
it's an
could be
old
great.
generation.
Yeah, your parents could be great, by the way. But then your khalto, your amto, your ammo, they come into the mix and they start, you know, or the friends at the mosque. And Judge, seriously, they're going to marry a Nigerian? You know, what? Are there no Eritreans in the area? Right?
Yeah.
And I believe it is getting better, but I think that it's getting better with the newer generation.
Yeah, I agree. It is.
Yeah, it's getting better with the newer generation. I don't think, honestly, I don't think it would be a problem if you marry, like, let's say, for example, a Lebanese marries another Lebanese, okay? That's beautiful, because there are cultural things that you want to preserve, especially when you live in the West. You know, you want to preserve, like, your mom's mjaddara, you know? You want to preserve the accent, you know, for your kids. You know, you want to preserve that stuff, right? I mean, for me, honestly, when I got married, you know, I said, you know, I want to get married to a girl from my background, but she has to be religious, okay? Has to have hijab, has to have so and so. And the reason why was because, you know, I wanted that sense of home, because I never had that. Personally, I never had that. I was traveling all of my life. You know,
you can relate to them. You just want to relate to them.
Ahsant. But for a friend of mine, for example, and let's say I didn't get that. If I didn't get that, you know, I would have been fine with just a Shi'i girl who, you know, is pious. Is just pious, you know. I think that's really the standard. But if I can get the other stuff, there's nothing wrong with that, right? Now, let's say for example, and I can only speak for myself, okay? So, alhamdulillah, I'm married, you know. Alhamdulillah, it worked out, you know. My marriage checklist was good. It worked out well for me, alhamdulillah, okay? Like Hajj Jameel, okay? And I pray for the rest of the shabab and the sisters, inshallah. But one thing I think that you ask yourself is, and we each have to ask ourselves, you know, are we falling into the same behavioral patterns as our prior generation? Okay? And I don't say our parents, because maybe our parents would be fine at the end of the road. You know, they might say, oh, I wish you would have married, you know, a girl from the Day'a, right? If you married from outside the Day'a, still from Lebanon, but outside the Day'a, or still from Iraq, but instead of like Karbala, you married from Najaf. Instead of Najaf, you married from Nasriya or something like that, right? It's the same idea in Iraq also, by the way, you know. So, but at the end of the road, you know, if you're faced with such a situation, how would you act? You know, for yourself, what choice have you made for yourself if you're not, if you haven't gotten married yet? And then, you know, if you are married, then, you know, what if your child comes to you and tells you, I want to marry a Nigerian? You know, marrying an Iraqi is one thing, you know, but marrying a Nigerian or someone from Ghana, completely different culture, yani, completely different, right? So there are levels, is what I'm saying, right? Now, remember one hadith, a very important hadith. Prophet Muhammad said, إن الله خلق النار لمن عصاه أو عفوا إن الله خلق النار لمن عصاه ولو كان سيدا هاشميا وخلق الجنة لمن أطاعه ولو كان عبدا حبشيا. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created hell for those who are disobedient to him, even if he's a Sayyid that's a Hashemite. If he's disobedient to Allah, his lineage is not going to help him. Straight to hell. And he created heaven for those who are obedient to him, even if they are Abyssinian slaves, African slaves, okay? Which in the time of the Prophet, for their time, they were considered the lowest class that you could be, you know, because they were taken as slaves, and even though many people were taken as slaves, I mean, because of the wars. But do we adhere to that? Like if a believer, I went to a city in somewhere in the US that had a beautiful, beautiful Shia African American community. Just beautiful. I mean, full of mu'mineen. This specific center, what they would do is at age 14, they take their kids out of school in the US and they travel to Qom. They put them in the Hawza for 4 years to study in Qom, so that by the time they graduate, okay, they have all the information that they need as Shia, ethnicities, you know, with strong faith. They come back, they finish their GEDs and they go to university. And I know some, you know, very, mashallah, very successful finance guys in DC that are actually from that community and did that at age 14. And we are Arab, and we, you know, we speak Arabic, right? They're not. They're not Arab. They're, you know, they're African American, you know, and this is what they do. And we see ourselves as the, you know, the best, the, you know, the bread and butter, the you know, of Islam and Shi'ism. But when you see that, oh my God, like that's so humbling. You're like, look at the level of iman in these people. What they're willing to do from an early age to go to a different country, speaking a different language, just to make sure that their kids learn about Ahl al-Bayt and dedicate 4 years out of their lives, right? How many of us would do that? For us Arabs, you know, usually it's when the person has done high school, maybe when he's done college, you know, then he'll go. And then he has to convince his father and his grandfather and his mom, and his dad wants him to finish his bachelor's, and his mom wants him to get married right after the bachelor's. And once he is done with his bachelor's, they tell him, please, you know, why don't you wait a little, you know, do your master's, right? You know, give me a grandchild. And then by that time, his whole seminary studies ambition is gone. All squashed. Let's see. So I've got a couple of points here from Sister Hadid. She says, exactly, when it comes to marriage, exactly. I should have read that earlier. I didn't know that was a thing. Is that an Iraqi issue? I don't know. Yes, it is. Okay, divide. I begged my parents years ago, but they said, yeah, mushkila. What are you going to do? You know? Yeah, that's literally what you have to do. You have to beg your parents. You're right. Okay, so in the events of Ghadir, Hajj Jamil says, why did the Prophet not give the khutbah for Imam Ali's succession in Mecca, where there were a bigger crowd? Well, actually, the crowd in Ghadir Khum was very big. According to Musnad Ahmad ibn Hanbal, there were over 100,000 Muslims. Because remember, this was the last Hajj. So people had come not just from Mecca and Medina. People had come from Damascus, from Iraq. They had come from all over, right? So when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, in that verse that you sent us yesterday, 567, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala commands him to announce, to make the announcement, it was crucial, it was critical. So Ghadir Khum was at that central point. So those who had gone ahead, Prophet Muhammad was told by Jibreel, send someone to tell them to come back. And those who were coming from Mecca, right, let them stop at this watering station, because Ghadir Khum was where water was. So that's basically the junction where everybody then would separate after that and go to their separate ways. Now, many Sunni narrations.
What about the Meccaeans or the Muslims who traveled from the south up from?
From like Yemen and from.
Right.
From Yemen.
Why would they go to Ghadir Khum and then travel back though, down south?
It had to do with I think it had to do with the station, that this is like like I said, almost like a watering well, you know, where at that time, as a traveling point, that's where everybody would stop, it seems. You know, those who were in Mecca were called to come to Ghadir Khum also. Those who had gone down were also called back to go to Ghadir Khum. Those who didn't go to Ghadir Khum, as you mentioned here, and they were, let's say they decided not to go in the way of Ghadir Khum, they went in another direction, they were also commanded to come to Ghadir Khum. Okay? And that's why a lot of the Sunni narrations, this is mentioned in the book Ali the Magnificent. How many people have that book by Yusuf Lalji? That's a good book to have in your library. Make sure you download that book. Okay, it's called Ali the Magnificent. It's by Yusuf Lalji. You can find it on Amazon. You can find the PDF, I believe, online. It might actually be on alislam.org also. I don't know if Brother Anwar or Hajj Alex can search for it, but I believe you'll find it on alislam.org. Ali the Magnificent by Yusuf Lalji. He mentions Ghadir Khum and he gives you the sources, and you'll see the sources 100, 120,000. We Shia, we believe there were maybe 70,000 Muslims, but according to the Sunni sources, there are a lot more. Okay, so let's think about this issue, all of the possibilities of how it is we're going to fix this problem within us, you know, and let's come out with like an action plan, okay, in the next 2 sessions, all right? And how are we going to be able, because listen, we talk about this all the time. I'm sick of just talking about it. Let's do something about it, right? Right? Let's make a change. And I'm not saying anarchy, you know, and leave your mosques. That's not what I'm saying, okay? What I'm saying is how we look within our hearts towards others, you know? Let's start with that, right? I know everybody here doesn't have that problem, but I'm saying it has to, like, you have to be able to, it has to transcend you. It has to go to others, right? We need an action plan for that. But we start with ourselves. I start with myself first, of course, right? I promise you right now, I make a covenant to you. I shall not separate between an Iraqi and a Lebanese and a Nigerian and a Ghanaian and anyone from anywhere. You know, I only use the standard Allah uses. We'll get to that verse, inshallah. Raise your right hand with me.
Ameen.
Do it. Do it. Right? And just say, I swear by Allah that I will not separate between, differentiate between anyone except in the piety of their hearts. Right? And Allah knows the piety in their hearts. So how am I going to know how to separate?
Ameen.
Right?
Ameen, Ya Rab.
Okay,
Okay,
Sheikh, then I have to, you know, I have a little issue there. But other than that, we're good.
Which part? Which part? The part where I don't know about the piety in their hearts, so I'm gonna be okay with everyone.
If you're a LeBron James fan, then.
Oh, if you're a LeBron James fan.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's where I have a little issue. Other than that, I'm good. You know.
Okay.
I know Alex is laughing at.
Who do you like? Curry?
Everybody but LeBron James.
Lish, haram, why? He does so much good work.
I'm joking. He does great work. Great work.
He does so
much amazing person off the court. Yeah, he's unbelievable off the court. Yeah.
The funny thing is, Sheikh, you're also talking to the biggest Lakers fan you'll probably ever meet too.
Ooh.
I mean, he's a huge Lakers fan, but he hates LeBron right now.
LeBron James pays there.
Pre-LeBron.
I mean,
so do you have a jersey?
What, of who?
Of LeBron.
No.
Yeah, you gotta get one. You gotta get one.
Oh man.
He probably has a Kobe jersey.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, quite a few of them.
Yeah. My condolences.
Thank you.
No, I mean, he was a great basketball player. He was like this. I'd say this generation, when Jordan was done, he basically, I mean, he was Jordan, really. He was, you know, right? I mean, he basically studied the man. He played like him. If you close your eyes and just see him shooting, imagine him, everything down to the form Jordan.
Exactly. Right? 100%.
Yeah. Smallah, mashallah, mashallah.
Mashallah.
Okay.
Sorry, guys. I didn't mean to go off topic.
No. Okay, all right. So does anybody have any comments or anything to add?
I have one comment. Hajj Jamil did actually, Sheikh Aous, is it correct that the location of Ghadir Khum, I don't know if I read it somewhere or heard it somewhere, that it was chosen because it's not like a place of particular significance. So that when people say that, oh, why didn't they say it when they were at Hajj and they were on the way back, you know? because it's kind of like it signifies it amongst all these other locations. Is that true, or is that just?
It's not that, you know, obviously it has a significance in that there's a ghadir there. So there's a ghadir, meaning there's a place of water. So people would rest there and get their water if they're traveling to like Damascus or Iraq or, you know, wherever else, you know, Africa or wherever else. So in that sense, it wasn't like being next to the Kaaba, yeah, if that's what you mean. It wasn't like being in Medina, yes, that's right. But it was a junction where all the Muslimin would end up meeting or end up to actually go to their different areas, you know, and strategically, as a choice of where to meet, you know, strategically speaking, that was the best place for them to meet at that time. Yes, you're right. There was no necessarily a monument or something like that, something monumental there, other than this becoming that event. Yes, for sure. But the strategy of why stop there was because of the fact that it was basically a junction, you know, for everybody to go to different. They would all have to meet there and separate, go to their different areas.
Hassan, thank you.
Sorry, someone made a comment that I thought was pretty funny. Okay. If someone has a strategy, they say refuse marriage until they become more open-minded. You know, I say, you know, be very careful with that strategy because you may never get married.
I'm fine with that, Sheikh.
You know, Sayyidah Narjis, Salamullahi alayha, Caesar, her grandfather, wanted to force her into marriage, right? To marry basically his nephew. And she refused. And he was insistent on her marrying, you know, someone that he would choose. Even though, you know, on the day of the marriage, the whole celebration that he had, there was a bad omen. You know, the crosses broke, the scriptures all ended up being, thrown all about because of the weather. Allah was angry with this. They took it as a bad omen. And, you know, she decided after the first dream that she had where Prophet Muhammad and Nabiullah Isa came to see her in the dream, she decided not to eat or drink or see anyone after that point, you know. So she basically was starving herself and got herself sick until her grandfather came to her and said to her, just tell me what I can do to help you. And she says, you know, the best thing she could think of at the time was, you know, free the Muslims who are in your prisons and send them back to their homelands. You know, and after that, you know, maybe everybody knows the story. I don't know. Maybe one day, inshallah, we'll go through that. Yes, there's a question from Sister Fatima. Sheikhna, on the topic of Sunni Shia hadiths on Ghadir Khum, why do they have different accounts, different count of people present despite referring to the same exact event? I think that okay, so those who collect that sort of information usually depend on people's different accounts, right? Different accounts of different people. So who I might consider trustworthy, for example, who attended, might be different than who you might think is trustworthy. That's number one. Number two, you know, how I measure a number might also be more accurate than how you measure a number. That depends on different factors, right? So that might be an issue also.